My wife cheated on me with her business partner, then faked a divorce to hide a $500, $0 embezzlement scheme. Now we're in a bitter legal battle over the house and millions in assets I never knew existed. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife, Jessica, stabbed me in the back with a level of betrayal I honestly didn't see coming. It's like one day everything was fine, and the next, my entire world turned upside down. The crazy part. It all started with little signs, things I brushed off, signs that now seem glaringly obvious in hindsight. Jessica had always been the type to keep her life tightly controlled. She was smart, beautiful, and had this way of making everyone believe she was perfect, at least on the surface. We'd been married for 7 years, and I thought we had a pretty solid life. She was ambitious, ran her own fashion boutique, and I was working in finance. We had a house in the suburbs, 2 kids, a dog, the usual American dream. But somewhere along the way, I started noticing little things. She'd be on her phone more often, hiding her screen when I'd walk into the room. She'd get defensive when I asked about her day, and sometimes she'd leave her laptop open, which I'd catch glimpses of late at night. The first real sign was a few months ago when I found a strange charge on our credit card, something I'd never seen before. I questioned her about it and she brushed it off, saying it was a mistake, some online shopping. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Jessica was always meticulous about money, about appearances, about everything. She had this way of lying that was so smooth, I almost didn't catch her. But I started digging a little more, checking her phone, her emails, just to see if I was imagining things. Then came the night I caught her. I was staying late at work, but I decided to swing by the house around 9 p.m. to grab something I forgot. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw her car parked out front, but what caught my eye was the unfamiliar car parked beside it, a sleek black sports car I'd never seen before. I thought maybe it was her friend or something. I got out, walked to the door, and that's when I heard voices, her voice, but not alone. I froze, listening in, and I heard her laughing in that way she only does when she's clearly flirting, or worse, more than flirting. I peeked through the window and saw her on the couch, wrapped up in some guy's arms. He was tall, well-dressed, and his hand was lazily resting on her thigh. The way she was leaning into him, her head on his shoulder, was so casual, so intimate. They didn't notice me. I watched as they kissed, then saw her whisper something that made him smile. I felt the blood drain from my face. That was the moment I realized my wife had been cheating on me with her business partner, Mark. It hit me like a freight train. All those little lies, the secretive phone calls, the late nights, everything made sense now. Jessica had been lying to my face for months. She'd been sleeping with Mark probably since last year, and I had no idea. The worst part. She faked a divorce to cover her tracks, claiming she needed space and that she was confused. But I found out she'd been embezzling money from her own company, over $500,000, and somehow Mark was involved in that too. It all felt like a bad movie I couldn't wake up from. I was furious, stunned, and utterly betrayed. I didn't even know how to process it all. My mind kept circling around the fact that she'd lied about everything: our marriage, her feelings, her integrity. How could she do this? How could she lie so effortlessly? The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was financial, legal, everything. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, and I knew I had to confront her. But I also knew this was just the beginning. The real chaos was about to start. The moment I saw her with Mark that night, everything changed. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and I kept replaying that scene in my head like some sick movie. I was furious, but more than that, I was hurt. Deep down, I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. How could she do this? How could she lie to me for so long, pretend to be the perfect wife, the loving mother, all while she was sneaking around with her business partner? I kept asking myself if I'd missed the signs, if I'd been blind or just naive. The next morning, I couldn't sit still. I had to know the truth, so I started digging into her financials and her emails. I knew she'd been hiding something. She was always secretive about her phone and her laptop, but I didn't expect what I found. Jessica had been embezzling money from her own company, a scheme that netted her over $500,000. She'd been funneling it into secret accounts, and I found evidence that Mark was involved, possibly helping her hide the money. It was like a bomb went off in my head. All those late nights, the secretive calls, the expensive purchases I never knew about, they all added up now. I confronted her that afternoon. I was boiling with rage, my voice trembling as I laid out what I'd discovered. I told her I knew about the affair, the embezzlement, everything. Her face twisted into this bitchy smile, like she expected me to be grateful she was finally coming clean. She told me I was overreacting, that I was paranoid, that Mark was just a friend, and that I was making a big deal out of nothing. She sat there lying so effortlessly, trying to paint herself as the victim. She even had the audacity to say she was doing this for us, that maybe we needed to reconnect, that it was all just a mistake. I could feel my blood boiling. I wanted to scream at her, to shake her, but I kept my composure, barely. I told her I knew she'd been lying about the divorce, that she'd faked it to cover her tracks. That's when she snapped. She told me I was crazy, that I was imagining things, that I had no proof. She accused me of being paranoid, of spying on her, and then she called me controlling and jealous. That bitch. She had the nerve to turn it around and make me feel guilty for catching her, but I wasn't about to let her manipulate me anymore. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, but I also felt a strange clarity. I realized I couldn't trust her, not anymore. The woman I loved, the woman I married, was gone. She was just a shell, hiding her lies behind that bitchy smirk. I knew I had to take action fast. I could let her keep running this scam, not only with the money but with our lives. That night I sat in my office, staring at the pile of evidence I'd collected. I knew I had to do something big. I started planning my next moves, consulting a lawyer, gathering every piece of proof I had. I also decided I was going to confront Mark, but I wanted to do it smart. I wasn't going to blow up everything without a plan. I needed leverage. I needed to understand exactly how deep this rabbit hole went. The betrayal cut deep, but I wasn't about to let her get away with it, not without a fight. As I sat there, I couldn't help but think about all the years we'd spent building a life together, all the trust I'd given her. Now, it felt like that trust had been shattered into a million pieces. I kept asking myself how I let it get this far, how I missed the signs, how I let her manipulate me for so long. But I knew one thing: this wasn't going to end quietly. Jessica had crossed the line, and I was determined to make her pay for it. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I was already plotting my revenge, and I was going to make sure she regretted every lie, every betrayal, every stolen dollar. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became that I had to act fast. Jessica was good at hiding her tracks, but I had enough evidence now to make her sweat. I started talking to a lawyer the next morning, someone who specialized in divorce and financial crimes. I wanted to understand all my options, especially regarding the house, the assets she'd been hiding, and how to handle her embezzlement scheme. The lawyer listened patiently, took notes, and then dropped a bombshell. There was a lot more at stake than I realized. Jessica had been involved in some serious financial fraud, millions of dollars, not just the $500,000 I'd uncovered. It turns out she'd been secretly laundering money through her business, creating fake invoices, and funneling funds into accounts that only she knew about. Mark was right in the middle of it, helping her hide and move the money, probably to cover their tracks. The lawyer told me I had grounds for a major lawsuit, and I could potentially seize assets I didn't even know about: luxury properties, investments, offshore accounts. I felt the adrenaline kick in. This was bigger than I thought. Jessica wasn't just cheating on me. She was running a full-blown criminal enterprise behind my back. While I was digging into her financial mess, Jessica kept trying to spin her story. She'd call me crying, saying I was overreacting, that I didn't understand her, that she was doing everything for our family. She'd get bitchy if I pressed her too hard, accusing me of ruining everything because I was jealous and paranoid. She even told me she'd been planning to come clean, that she was trying to fix everything, but I didn't buy it. I knew her game now. She was a master manipulator, and she was trying to make me feel guilty for catching her. It made me furious. One day, I decided I needed proof of her latest moves. I staked out her office, and what I saw confirmed everything. She met with Mark, again, and I managed to record their conversation. They discussed moving the money, covering their tracks, and Jessica kept insisting she was close to cleaning everything up. I felt a mix of disgust and rage. That's when I realized I needed to get ahead of her, before she could drain her accounts or disappear with the assets she'd stolen. I also uncovered some shocking details about the house. Jessica had been secretly refinancing it, taking out loans under fake pretenses, and I found documents showing she'd been planning to transfer ownership to Mark's name. That would left me with nothing. No house, no assets, just a pile of debt. I couldn't let that happen. I had to act fast to protect what was mine, and I knew I needed leverage. My mind was racing. I decided to confront her again, but this time I'd do it with the evidence laid out. I arranged a meeting at the house, told her I knew everything, and that I wasn't going to be played anymore. When she arrived, she looked so confident, so bitchy, like she thought she could talk her way out of anything. I threw the documents on the table and told her I had proof of her embezzlement, her secret accounts, her refinancing schemes. Her face paled, but she quickly recovered, throwing more lies at me, saying I was misunderstanding everything, that I was crazy, and that she was the victim here. I felt my blood boil. This was the moment I realized she was never going to admit the truth willingly. She was going to lie, manipulate, and try to turn it around. But I had enough now. I told her I was going to take legal action, that she'd see justice for what she'd done. I also made it clear I was planning to get a divorce and fight for everything she'd stolen. The look on her face was priceless, part anger, part fear. I knew I'd pushed her into a corner and she didn't like it. That night I sat alone in the house, feeling a strange mixture of relief and dread. I was finally taking control, but I also knew the battle was just beginning. Jessica was dangerous, smarter than I thought, and she had no hesitation about lying her way out of anything. I was prepared to fight her in court, to expose her lies, and to reclaim what she'd stolen from me. The emotional toll was heavy. I'd gone from feeling betrayed to feeling betrayed and enraged. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I wasn't going to let her ruin me, not without a fight. Over the next few days, I threw myself into gathering every piece of evidence I could find. I didn't trust Jessica anymore. Her lies had become so blatant, so desperate, that I knew she was capable of anything. I contacted a forensic accountant to dig into her financial records, and what they uncovered was staggering. Not only had she been embezzling hundreds of thousands, but she also had offshore accounts, hidden money, investments, and assets that she kept completely secret from me. It was like discovering a whole different life she'd been living behind my back. Meanwhile, Jessica kept trying to play the victim. She would call me, crying, insisting she was doing this for us, that she was trying to protect the family, but her tone was bitter, bitchy even. She accused me of being paranoid, of spying on her, and kept insisting that Mark was just a business partner and that I was jealous and controlling. I couldn't stand her lies anymore. Every time she opened her mouth, I felt like I was listening to a snake slithering around, trying to justify her betrayal. One night, I decided I needed to confront her again, but this time I was ready. I told her I had all the proof, screenshots, bank statements, recorded conversations, and that I was going to take legal action. I warned her that I was going to expose everything in court, that she wasn't going to get away with stealing from me and lying to my face. Her bitchy smirk faded for a moment, replaced by a flicker of panic. She tried throwing a tantrum, yelling that I was ruining everything, that I was just jealous and insecure. That's when I snapped. I told her she was a liar, a thief, and a manipulator. I said I didn't want her fake apologies or her crocodile tears. I wanted her to leave, to get out of my house, and to prepare for the legal battle ahead. I also made it clear I was filing for divorce, an absolute necessity now. I wasn't going to let her take everything she wanted and walk away like she'd done nothing wrong. I wanted justice, and I was prepared to fight for it. The next morning, I hired a private investigator to follow her. I needed to know where she was going, who she was meeting, and if she was trying to transfer assets or hide anything further. Turns out, I was right. She'd been meeting with Mark almost daily, discussing the next steps, and she was trying to transfer ownership of properties and accounts. She was planning her escape, I think, thinking she could just walk away with her stolen money and start fresh. That's when I realized I had to act even faster. I filed the paperwork for divorce, along with a motion for a temporary restraining order to freeze her bank accounts and assets. I also filed a lawsuit to seize her properties and demand full disclosure of all her financial dealings. Jessica's reaction was a mix of fury and contempt. She accused me of ruining her life, of being paranoid, and told me I was overreacting. But I knew better now. The woman I married was a liar, a thief, and a manipulator. She'd been living a double life, and I was finally uncovering the truth. I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with dread. I'd taken the first step toward reclaiming my life, but I knew this was just the beginning. Jessica was dangerous, and she wouldn't go down without a fight. I also realized that I had to be prepared for her next move, whether it was trying to turn the kids against me or trying to hide more money. I had to stay vigilant. I'd lost a lot of trust, but I was determined to get justice, no matter how ugly it got. I wasn't going to let her get away with stealing from me and ruining my life. Not anymore. The legal battle kicked into high gear faster than I expected. Jessica didn't take the divorce lightly. She fought back hard, throwing everything she had at me, which was pretty much her entire arsenal of lies, manipulation, and money to burn. She hired her own lawyer, some slick, aggressive shark who seemed more interested in dragging things out than settling. Every day brought new surprises, hidden accounts popping up, more fake documents, and her trying to spin everything as if I was the villain. I stayed calm, even though inside I was boiling. I had the evidence, I had the law on my side, but Jessica was relentless. She started accusing me of controlling her, of being jealous, claiming I was paranoid about her affair with Mark. She even tried to turn the kids against me, telling them I was harsh and mean, all while trying to paint herself as the victim. It infuriated me, her bitchy attitude, her lies, her manipulations. But I knew I had to keep my cool, stay strategic, and let the law do its job. One of the biggest blows came when Jessica's lawyer filed a motion claiming that she was the innocent spouse, that she was only trying to protect her assets, that I was overreacting. It was a blatant attempt to buy time and drag the case out. I knew she was desperate to keep her money hidden, to keep her secrets buried. I hired a forensic accountant, and what they found was staggering. Jessica had been funneling money into offshore accounts, creating fake invoices, and even transferring assets to her family members in another country. She was trying to hide everything, but I had the proof now. Meanwhile, I learned from my private investigator that Jessica was meeting with Mark even more frequently, planning something. I caught her trying to transfer ownership of the house, our house, into Mark's name secretly. That was the moment I realized. She was willing to do anything to keep her money and her new life. I had to act fast to stop her. I pushed for a court order to freeze her assets to prevent her from transferring anything further. The judge granted it, and suddenly her plans were in limbo. Things got uglier when Jessica's lawyer accused me of harassment and trying to ruin her reputation, which was laughable. I had all the evidence, all the proof of her schemes, and I was just trying to protect myself and what was rightfully mine. I was sick of her bitchy attitude, her lies, and her manipulations. I decided to take a more aggressive approach. I subpoenaed her emails, her phone records, everything. I wanted to expose her for the fraud she was committing. The emotional toll was heavy. I felt betrayed, angry, and exhausted. Every day felt like a battle, fighting to keep my sanity, fighting to keep what's mine, fighting to get justice. But I also started to realize something. Jessica's entire life was built on lies. Her charm, her beauty, her supposed success, all of it was the real Jessica was a thief and a liar. The more I uncovered, the more I understood that I had to be prepared for anything. This was a war, and I was in it for the long haul. In the quiet moments, I'd sit alone and reflect on everything I'd lost: trust, stability, my sense of security. But I also knew I was gaining something more important: clarity. Jessica's true character was finally exposed, and I was finally taking steps to reclaim my life. I had to stay strong, stay focused, and not let her manipulate me anymore. The legal fight was far from over, but I was determined to see it through. I was done being the victim. It was time for justice, and I was going to make sure she paid for every lie, every betrayal, every dollar she stole. The court proceedings dragged on for months, and each day revealed more of Jessica's lies and manipulations. She tried every tactic in the book, playing the victim, crying in court, claiming she was misunderstood, insisting she was trying to do right by the family. But I had enough evidence to drown her in facts. The financial records, the recordings, the offshore accounts, the fake invoices, all of it painted a picture she couldn't deny. Her lawyer tried to spin stories, but the judge wasn't buying it. In the end, I got everything I fought for: full custody of the kids, the house, and a significant portion of the assets she'd stolen and hidden. The court also ordered her to pay back the embezzled money, plus interest, and to cover my legal fees. Jessica's face during the verdict was priceless. She looked defeated, angry, and helpless all at once. She knew she'd lost, and she knew I'd exposed her for the fraud she was. The aftermath wasn't easy. Jessica moved out, and I was left to pick up the pieces of a life that had been shattered. The house was quiet without her bitchy comments and manipulative smirks. The kids were confused at first, but I made sure they knew the truth, that their mother had lied, stolen, and betrayed everyone she was supposed to love. I didn't sugarcoat it, but I also reassured them that I'd do everything to keep them safe and happy. As for me, I had a lot of healing to do. The trust I once had in Jessica was gone forever, but I learned something valuable. Sometimes you have to go through hell to find your strength. I realized that I had been so focused on building a perfect life, I missed the warning signs. I became more cautious, more aware of the red flags, and more determined to protect myself and my children from people like her. Looking back, I'm grateful I uncovered the truth before it was too late. Jessica's betrayal taught me a harsh lesson about deception, greed, and the importance of vigilance. I also learned that revenge isn't just about getting even. It's about reclaiming your dignity and justice, no matter how long it takes. I don't harbor hatred anymore. I just feel relief that I finally took control. To anyone going through something similar, trust your instincts, get the proof, and don't be afraid to fight for what's right. People like Jessica don't change. They only get worse when they're cornered. But with patience, a clear plan, and the law on your side, you can come out the other end stronger. I did, and I'll never let someone like her manipulate or steal from me again.